It's the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. In studio with us this week, we have local band Christmas in Vietnam. And it's going to be a question that is going to just kind of float, and you're smiling because we haven't even got to it yet. And you're like, yeah, I knew this was coming. So I'm not going to ask it just yet. Instead, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. So starting from my far left.
I'm Brian. I'm the drummer.
Jimmy, the bassist.
Spent guitar and vocals.
All right. Now, we'll ask the big question.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas in Vietnam. How does that name come about?
I think Spent kind of, we went over that a little earlier today, as a matter of fact. I was like, well, everybody's going to ask, of course. And I think he's got possibly the best answer.
We felt like it rolled off the tongue a little better than Hanukkah in Iraq.
I asked for that one, didn't I? I just basically stepped up to the plate. You were just waiting to swing on that one.
I think so.
That's a good one.
The main thing, I think, whenever we were going to come in here, we're like, oh, well, that's the first question that's going to be asked. How do we even answer it?
Yeah.
But yeah, he came up with the best, I think, terms of defining what it really means.
It's just all in symbols, really. Like when you think about archetypes, and I say the word like king, a certain idea may come into your mind, or I say the word star, okay, certain things can come into your mind. Same way with something like Christmas or Vietnam, and whatever it is, it's the marriage of those two things.
Excellent. I like that idea. So, not as much as I like the other one, but that's a good answer. You hold on to the other one because that's a good one to use.
Hanukkah, Iraq. That's going to be our bluegrass band pretty soon.
When you were trying to come up with something, was that the first thing that you came up with, or was there other options?
We bounced around a few different ideas. We settled on that one, felt like it was the best thing.
And as soon as that name kind of flew out there, everybody said, well, that's it. That's obviously it. And it kind of just happened.
Well, I think whenever I hear it, I kind of, my frame of mind doesn't just go to symbols. It also goes to eras, time, places. Mm-hmm. So I throw back instantly to that era and time, and I start to think more 70s type sound, which kind of, I think, fits your music too.
Mm-hmm.
So did that come into play too when you were like, oh, okay, well, this is the style of music, so this makes sense?
Yes, I believe that had a hand in it.
We're all big fans of the classics, of course. And a lot of that does play to our sound.
Mm-hmm.
What are your biggest influences from that sound then?
Wow.
The big ones.
Yeah, Zeppelin, Pink Floyd.
Stones,
Yeah.
of course.
Now, do you have to, whenever you're thinking, okay, this is something that ties in with the name, do you, certain music, you just kind of go, that's what we're going to write and nothing else?
Never.
We'll save the other for the bluegrass band, or is it just something you throw together?
Never. I mean, usually on our practice sessions, we'll have 30-minute jams. And if it fits with our tone, we'll go with it. If not, we'll just cut it out. And that's the good thing about us as a band. There's really no hard direction. I'm never afraid to take direction from either Brian or Spin. I'll just kind of flow my own little way. And if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. If it does, we'll keep it.
So is there anybody who has the overall veto, or is it just kind of a group thing?
No, always a group
Total
thing.
democracy.
At all times, yeah.
It's got to work that way.
Well, as we crafted the songs and began to put those together, and we kind of come up with the sound, and we came up with the name and all that, and it just kind of fit. How did we decide the roles here? Was it instant that he's going to be handling vocals, or?
Really, and it's still open to this day. I mean, if Brian wants to jump on the vocals, feel free. And that's a good thing about, me. I've played in quite a few bands, but this has been the best experience I've ever had, just because of that. Just because of that open fact of like, if your vocals fit that song, then that's great. We want to do what helps the music. We don't want to take away from it anyway.
That's it. Always just keeping it open and not really trying to limit ourselves.
So don't really have a traditional lead vocalist then, just simply whatever fits the song.
Exactly. And if one of the songs requires a high female vocalist, then we'll all get in there and try our best high. It doesn't matter. We'll just keep it open.
There's
See
always
what happens.
auto-tune, so.
Exactly. Auto-tune, effects, or the famous delete button.
There you go. That's a great effects button. Works for me sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, who handles the vocals? Let's take a look at one of your songs. Who's handling the vocals on The Darkness?
That was Spent.
And how did that one come together?
Really, Jimmy and I hadn't played for a little while, and this had been a few years ago.
A little while. It had been like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
I mean, we just literally picked up our instruments one night over a few adult beverages. And
Right. So I showed him sort of the beginning of the riff, and he bounced off that and came back with, different ideas, and it sort of developed from there. And we were like, wow, we need to do something with this, more than just, banging around on some old dusty acoustic guitars.
Yeah.
And so then it evolved from there. The lyrics, same time, or?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, once you get a little farther in the bottle, so to speak, you're going to come up with lyrics. I mean, it just happens. It's natural. It's a natural thing to come up with lyrics. And I think whenever we unleashed the rock that night, it kind of just stuck.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's hear that Unleashed Rock. It's The Darkness. It's Christmas in Vietnam on the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. It's the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. This week in studio with me, I have Christmas in Vietnam. No, we're not celebrating. I have the band. Guy's nice enough to drive all the way over from the big metropolis that is Elmwood. Got him laughing on that one. For those of you who are unaware, Elmwood is a little town in between Carthage and Cookeville, and take the back road to get there. I know. I spent a little bit of time there, so it's nice to see that we've actually got a band that hails from there. Whenever I was looking through the material and saw the submissions that we had for bands, and I saw that, and I kind of joking with you about being from Elmwood, but seriously, when I saw that we actually had a band from Elmwood, I was like, that is cool.
Yeah, it is.
Because, it is a small enough place for them to be able to say that they have their own local band.
Sure, exactly. And you got to be number one somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Really.
So I'm guessing every show is a sellout when you're there?
Everyone.
Seriously, do you have a place there that you do perform, or?
Right now, it's mainly studio time. Mainly studio. We're trying to get, hyped up for this new album we're coming out with. So we've really kind of taken the whole live thing down a notch or two and focusing basically in the basement. That's about the only place we're going nowadays. But yeah, once we get through with this and we get everything ironed out, we're definitely looking to play live elsewhere. So
Now, is it a distraction spending this much time in the basement? You said you could go in and bang for hours, but is there anything else keeping you from that as far as not being able to get to the studio?
Everyday life. Jobs. Jobs, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, them stupid jobs.
Yeah, I know.
Need
Real
to pay for
life.
things.
Yeah, real life. But yeah, we try to get together every weekend to make sure that doesn't happen because, this is one of our favorite things.
So, how much actual time would you say you do spend in the studio then?
A
Well,
lot less than we'd like to.
yeah.
Because if we don't get together on a weekend, it feels like, we got other stuff we're doing, but it feels bad. Like, you feel like you need to at least do a couple hours or at least, practice a little bit. But it's actually really surprising every time we go back. We don't really lose, like, what we played the week before, a couple of weeks before. We're really in sync, and we really love recording and really love jamming out.
And as far as studio time goes, the studio's at my house, so I guess I have more studio time than either one of these guys. So I like to try to get at least 2 hours in a day, just solid mixing, because before we started Christmas in Vietnam, I had no idea how to mix a song. I had no idea that you even needed a microphone amplifier to record a song with. But now that we've learned all this and we've got all this equipment and time invested in it, the music coming from this new one is utterly amazing. It's going to completely change everything as far as the sound of Christmas in Vietnam.
You guys have an EP out at the moment, about 6 to 7 songs on that, and that's available online?
It is.
Where at online?
Free streaming on Reverb Nation. And if you follow the Facebook links, facebook.com/Christmas in Vietnam, it has different links you can follow for high quality streaming.
So there's several different places people can go to kind of look for your music and check that out. So, and get the EP now, because as you're saying, it sounds like you guys are moving in a different direction of sorts.
A little bit.
So, well, we'll talk some more about that direction coming up on the local edition of the 9 o'clock news on Rock 93.7. It's the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. In studio with us this week, we have Christmas in Vietnam. I've got Brian, Jimmy, and spending some time with us, telling us about the EP that they've got worked up, and they're working on new material. You guys have built your own studio.
Yeah.
And you said that was a learning process. So you went from just picking up a guitar a few years ago and deciding, hey, maybe we should give this another shot, to how much time did you spend studying to learn all this?
Well, we've always played music, I think, from, childhood. But the thing is, whenever we took that little break in the middle there, we kind of come back to it and found this love for it that we had just kind of forgotten about. I mean, I know that whenever life kind of took me after high school and I got out and started doing my own thing, music was one of the last things on my mind. But whenever we had actually picked up those guitars that night, right back into it, full force. So that prompted me at that point to, get our first little microphone amp and try a few little things. And when that turned out horribly, that made me get something different. And then whenever that was horrible, like, where'd all this echo come from? Now we got to get some acoustic panels. Now we got to get this. And now it is a full-blown studio down in the bottom of my basement. And my wife doesn't appreciate that very much, but she goes along with it. She's a real good sport with it. But, I mean, it as far as the learning process goes, you're never going to learn it. It is
trial and error.
It is a trial and error. And you just try your best to get it sounding the way you want it. And then that's where you have to leave it. You have to just stop at one point. And instead, you'll just go crazy.
Well, you two, Jimmy and Spent, you two kind of picked it back up and got it going. So I'm curious, how did we get Brian back involved with this? Had you also just given up for a while, or?
Oh, well, I had no idea who these guys were whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
I actually worked with Spent's wife and at a factory, actually. And she was like, well, my husband and, his friend are just playing music all the time, and they have nobody to play with, and I was like, well, I'll play with them, So went over there, and Spent was the only one there, and he showed me some of the stuff that they were doing, and he had a couple tracks that he didn't know what they were, and, he clicked on them, and, I mean, you can tell some of these songs, they were influenced by adult beverages.
That's a nice
but it didn't turn me off at all. I mean, I'd played in a couple bands, like when I was in high school and stuff like that. I mean, I'm a lot younger than these guys, but they just brought the certain level of maturity that I needed to start playing at another level, because I always played, but I didn't really play, you know what I mean? It's been an evolving process for me and all of us, actually. Yeah. It's been really, really awesome.
I'm just tickled over the fact that he just admitted that his wife set up a play date for him. So
it did. It worked out too.
She's really effective.
Yeah, it worked out.
Well, things kind of falling together. Tell me about one of the songs that fell together for you, Circles. Now this one's just a little bit of a different, trying some things?
Yeah, it is quite a bit different. I mean, and like with Circles, the Darkness came together a little bit easier than Circles. Circles is more of an experimental track, I think, for us. And the big thing about that is I think the limitations were set by the equipment we had and the amount of time we had. With more time, I believe we could have come to fruition a little bit better. But it kind of puts you in the mindset of an experimental type track. And that's what I do love about Circles, is that the I guess the rawness, is that even a word? But the rawness,
rawness
of the track. I mean, and that's what I love about it. Sure, it could have been done a little bit better as far as a little bit more time, a little bit better equipment. But hands down, I mean, it is one of the most unique tracks I believe I've heard or ever had, been able to take part in.
Well, why don't we give that a listen? This is Circles. It's Christmas in Vietnam on the 9 o'clock news on Rock 93.7. It's the 9 o'clock news local edition on Rock 93.7. Tonight in studio with us, we have Christmas in Vietnam, who have made the long trek to come here from Elmwood, the mighty city over there. And guys, I'm having a blast talking with you about your music, because it's clear that you have gotten the passion for it. It may have just reignited over just one night of a couple of guys picking up a couple of guitars and seeing what they could do with it. But it seems like it's kind of expanded from there. So they're working on new material sometime next year.
Oh, yeah. I would say at the end of this year, beginning of next year, yeah.
How many songs are you putting together for the next effort?
We're looking at about 7. Again, we want more of an extended EP this time, but we want to have some little intermission points and a little bit more of a visual representation of the band for this whole next one. And we're going to have a whole new internet site dedicated for the band. We're going to have a kind of a visual journey through a majority of these songs on this next one as well.
Okay.
So it's not just going to be an audio effort. It's going to be a visual effort as well.
So what you're working on is more of a, what do I want to say here? Project of types, akin to something throwback. Well, it fits in with the name. Going back towards that 70s as we were talking, there were a lot of albums that were kind of experimental in their type, trying to make you take a little bit of a journey.
That's a very good point. And that's
so is that what you're shooting for? You have an overall theme that goes with your album?
Very much so. Very much so. And we tried to think about how we could do this for the first one, but we just really didn't have enough time. We needed room to grow. That is the main thing.
Yeah.
And now that we've found that room to grow, we've already dedicated a lot of our time to that visual journey and visual representation of the next audio chapter.
So are we looking at something that ties songs together along the lines of, say, like The Wall, or are we talking about something that's just more of a loose collection of songs like, I don't know, something like Tommy or something maybe that they kind of fit together, but they could stand on their own?
They can all stand on their own, but as far as the visual representation goes, there will definitely be a thematic or theme to it.
Well, that actually sounds kind of cool. So almost an interactive type album that you're working on.
Very much so.
Pretty ambitious effort there. So looking forward to that. How many songs so far do you have together?
Well, we have all of them together.
You have them all together, so it's just a matter of getting the time to get them mastered.
Studio time. Yeah.
So cool. Well, you've got the studio built, so
exactly.
That part's there. In the meantime, people can go online and find out more about you through the site that's currently set up before this new one launches. That's at Reverb Nation. Facebook, probably the easiest way. Is that the central location for you, or?
Yeah,
Yes.
Facebook, Reverb Nation, those two. Yeah.
Okay, now at the moment we're on hiatus as far as doing any shows. Want to get things recorded. So looking like next year's going to be a pretty big launch. So
Yeah.
I am kind of curious. You don't have to divulge it, but I am kind of curious. Have you come up with a name for all of this?
Not yet.
No. Okay.
No.
You took the time to come up with Christmas in Vietnam. It sounded like you put some thought into it. So I was just kind of curious if you were going down that road, if we could get a sneak peek at that. But that's okay.
Yeah. And you guys will definitely hear it.
Well, and if you don't, I think I probably have one that I can throw to you. Of course, I'm going to ask royalties for it, though.
Sure.
Inspired by adult beverages.
There you go.
There you go. Inspired by. There you go.
Christmas in Vietnam's new. It might have been inspired by adult beverages. Well, we're looking forward to great things from you guys. It sounds like you're very excited about the music, and I'm glad that we had a chance to share it with everybody tonight. I want to thank you for coming in and talking to us and giving us a little look into your band, letting people know what Christmas in Vietnam is all about. It's not just about some kind of a name. They actually stand for something.
Exactly. Well, thanks for having us on. Yeah, we really appreciate it.